Hello and welcome to Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy,
And I'm Claire.
and we're here to talk about some of the disturbing things that go on in the world, past and present. We feel like not knowing doesn't mean the crazy doesn't exist.
So we're going to scar you with the knowing.
Enjoy.
Okay, so today
Settle down. So, what do you got for us today, Claire?
today we're headed to the birthplace of Coca-Cola, none other than the Columbus, Georgia, around the 2018-ishes.
You son of a bitch. You didn't even give me a chance to guess. I could have known that.
No, you wouldn't have, because you could guess any point in time. Anyway.
I meant the place.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were saying the year.
No. I know I'm good, but I ain't that good.
That's why it's like, you wouldn't have guessed.
You don't have to laugh about it.
Guess a number from 1 to 2024. You're going to nail it.
Anyway.
You don't know.
Continue on.
So the feller I'm going to introduce you to is William Leonard Talley III, a.k.a. Bill. Bill was a native Virginian who grew up rescuing stray animals and finding friends in those less fortunate than himself. He would join the army, become a ranger, then transition away from military life to being a day trader in New York City. He was actually at the foot of the Twin Towers during 9/11 as the second plane hit and helped first responders. So he saw things people can't even imagine and certainly will never forget. Now, that experience would lead him to wanting to become a police officer, serving on the Special Weapons and Tactical Team, SWAT, in case you didn't know. And he would be a sergeant with that police department in Columbus by 2022. Now, he would get married. He'd have a wife.
Is he our...
I'm not going to tell you.
Well, he sounds like a great feller so far. If he becomes the murderer, I'm going to be real upset.
Well, either way, you're upset. So he's going to get married. He'll have a wife named Rebecca. We're going to call her Becky. And they'll have 2 children together. Now, at some point...
Does he kill them?
Andrew, would you stop trying to guess the story? You're already ruining it.
Sorry.
At some point...
Not sorry.
God dang it, Andrea. Shut your pie hole. I've restarted the sentence twice. Now, at some point, Bill would start to... God dang it, Andrea.
I'm quiet.
You can't say you're quiet. Literally saying it means you're not quiet. At some point, Bill would start to struggle with the devil's juice, and depression would follow soon after. And that would drag him into that vicious cycle of battling of alcoholism. Now, I'm not sure what the breaking point for him was, or just all the things he's experienced. Being a police officer, I'm sure, is not an easy task, but whatever he's grappling with.
Especially on SWAT.
Right. So it's just like...
I'm sure he's seeing things that regular officer isn't seeing.
Yeah.
So he's seeing the extra fucked up side of the world.
Right. Well, Bale's mom would say that people so often see officers as those that are there to help and no one sees them as needing help themselves. And I wholeheartedly agree with her. I think medical professionals in a whole get overlooked. They take a lot because they work long hours. They're abused by all the people because they're just, I mean, it's a hard job. And unfortunately, that's where you end up with compassion fatigue and them dealing with a whole lot. So,
well, the thing that I don't understand, and I realize it's like a catch-22 because people that tend to become alcoholics, they use it as a source of comfort for their stress, but it's also a depressant. So if you suffer with depression and you're regularly putting a depressant into your system, you're just making it worse, you know?
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. So it's just, he's not going about it the right way. Anyway, all of that compiled together would lead him to an extramarital affair with Kelly Livingston. Now, she's 43, he's 50.
Son of a bitch.
Don't ask me how long their affair lasts. All I can tell you is that it wasn't a brief fling, but a full-fledged relationship that Bill's wife, Becky, knew about.
What?
I know. That's why I said I'll be curious what your thoughts and opinions are in this case, because mine changed, and we'll get there. Becky.
Hey, on a side note, wait.
What?
Just don't get an attitude. I was watching comedy reels the other day, and you know how they'll talk to the audience? The camera spans over, and this one dude is sitting there, and he's got his hand across the table holding hands with one woman, And then there's another woman sitting kind of behind him with her arm around his neck and shoulder, and she's like hanging on him. And the comedian's like, "What is going on right here?" Because they're like right up in the front.
Mm-hmm.
And he says the woman across the table that he's holding hands with was his wife, and the one on his back was his girlfriend. And the comedian and everybody else is like, "What?"
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what just popped up in my brain hole when you just mentioned all that. Don't sign me up for that.
Well, it certainly feels like that. Becky would say that Kelly came into Bill's life when he was broken and vulnerable and really at his worst. So she was hoping that Kelly could help him. Now, mind you, at this point, they'd been married 20 years. So I think she's truly an amazing person for looking beyond it affecting them and looking at it as, if I can't get him through this, maybe someone else can.
It's called a therapist.
Well, I can't say that I would be so understanding, but I guess if he's already losing his shit, piling things onto him to deal with isn't going to help him unraveling.
No. No. I consider myself a supportive wife. I love Jason. I would do anything for Jason. If he needed me to move heaven and earth for him, I would try to find a way to do it. However, if he's suffering from depression, his penis wandering to another woman, I am not in support of.
So that's where I was saying, though, that this wasn't a fling, this was a full-fledged relationship. So I don't know, I haven't told you a little bit about Kelly just yet, but spoiler, she's an EMT. Becky works in like the school system. Not to say that's not a hard job, but I feel like he found comfort in Kelly. So the whole EMS system would be, they're going to be running into each other. It's a small world. Everybody knows each other. It's very family felt. So I think their relationship, even though it delves into a sexual nature, I think they have a lot in common. Not to say it makes it okay. I'm not at all. But I think that's where Becky's coming at it, as she can't relate to him and whatever he's going through. And I don't know if maybe they met on a call and just started hanging out, or just.
It was wrong from the start then.
Right. But that's where I feel like Becky was saying that they built a whole life together. She, at this point, when he meets Kelly, he's already having a problem with booze. She's aware that he's not going down the right space, but she's trying to do her best, doing whatever is what I figure, because they've got two children together. So she's got to do whatever she can so that he doesn't fall apart, if not anything for the kids' sake. So I don't know how high the road she's on that she's taken. I'm not saying it's right what he's doing to Becky.
No.
And I think she should head out.
I have my opinion. Ready? I think because she works in the school system, there are so many careers that don't get paid enough, one of which being school staff in general. I don't think any of them make the money that they deserve. I'm going to guess she's not in the position to divorce him because of the affair. And because they have two children, she feels stuck. So it's more or less, if she feels like she agrees with his affair, it justifies it in her head as, if she approves of it, then it's not as bad, I guess, because he's going to do whatever he wants. And if he's an alcoholic at this point.
But she would say she was committed to loving him and supporting him forever, no matter what.
Yeah, well, my stipulations on that would be, once your penis starts wandering, I don't give a shit how much I loved you. You obviously don't feel the same about me. Peace out, son bitch. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you.
So Kelly grew up in Columbus. She moved to Wyoming for 7-ish years after graduating high school with her close friend. They end up making their, well, she does like some sort of business over there. It's not relevant to the story, so blah, blah, blah. She comes back to Columbus around 2005 and focuses on getting her degree as an EMT, and quickly develops close relationships with the firemen, doctors, nurses, and other EMTs. And by the way, I don't mean in a sexual way. She's just a very friendly, positive, nothing can keep me down kind of a person.
Sure she is.
So everybody loves working with her.
Uh-huh.
Everybody loves working with her because she makes the
I bet
best
they
of a
do.
stressful environment, and she's easy person to rely on. Just always a happy face, makes the workload lighter.
And instead of hugging her coworkers with her arms, she uses her thighs.
So I guess I could see, if you're at your wit's end with not being able to help someone you have loved for the majority of your life, you would want somebody who's super positive in their life, if not for their own sake than the kids that are witnessing the unraveling.
No.
I know this was going to make you squirrely. I just didn't realize this squirrely.
I would not be okay with Jason having an affair and my kids being aware of it. Look, if you want to be in a
He's
poly
healthy.
whatever this garbage is that's new, I by all means go for it. But when you got married and agreed to be in a monogamous relationship and then procreate in that monogamous relationship, that is the contract I signed up for. The second you decide to change the terms of that contract gives me the option to piece the fuck out, motherfucker. I'm not raising my kids to think that the way I'm being treated by an alcoholic is okay. And I'll be damned if some other hussy is going to come waltzing in and take all the good stuff, all the happy lovey-dovey, and then I'm getting the leftover shit end of things because I'm not going to compare. Because if she's the nagging wife, because let's face it, he's having an affair, that puts her in the nagging wife category in his brain, and she's got all the bills and the kids and all the stress, he's running from that life. So he's running to the arms of another woman. No, you're not going to come back and bring me just the shit end of the relationship. Peace out. Anyway, continue.
So I'm not saying that I would be on board with the way she's handling things. I'm just saying, at first, when I was looking at this case, I did not understand her at all. And I wouldn't go that route either. However, I guess I was seeing it as more of, I think she loves him so much, and where she's there for him, she's trying to be there for him in any way that she could be. And I think she saw it as more of a, they've been together for so long that Kelly might be temporary. They've got a longer history so that eventually they can get past the Kelly side of things because he's just fallen down a bad path. And in order to pull him back out of that, if that's what it takes for Kelly, she's temporary. In a sense, they both are using her to get him back onto he's circling the drain, is what I saw it as. And then I was like, still, I don't like, I don't agree with having someone else in your marriage either. I think he went about it the wrong way, but I think she's not willing to flush down 20 plus years because he's doing everything self destructive he can. So Kelly would tell one of her closest friends that she met a man. Now her friend would say that Kelly seems super happy. Now, mind you, it was just somebody she met and they were talking, and that was it. And she said they at that point they were just talking. Now she'd also say the downside is this feller is married and his wife and him aren't sleeping in the same room, but they've only just, I mean, they're not divorced. Um, but his excuse was it would make it financially hard for them and the girls.
What is with this infidelity going on here? This does not work for my brain.
I don't know, but I thought the whole, yeah, so turns out divorce sucks. It's pricey, but turns out you can't have your cake and eat it too. Although I guess he can because he is.
Yeah, it sounds like multiple people are.
A year into this relationship, Kelly's friend would periodically ask about her boyfriend, thinking it was strange since she hadn't met him, and Kelly stopped bringing up things about him. Like when they first met, she would hear the whole, it was hearts and all the things in the beginning, but it just like she thought it was weird because anytime Kelly had a boyfriend, she would tell her all sorts of stuff, and this guy was different, so she kept it very close to her. I'm not sure if that was also because he was married, so she wasn't talking about her relationship. But Bill was the same way. So Bill and Kelly had a rocky relationship. Towards like at that year mark, neighbors would say they would have frequent arguments that were super loud. So the relationship definitely ran hot and cold. One neighbor thought he lived there, so clearly he was spending a whole lot of time at Kelly's house. Which brings us to March 11th, 2018. The police would be sent to Kelly's home because Bill is drunk, having a personal crisis, and armed with a .45 caliber handgun, threatening to hurt himself. It would take the police 3 sets of handcuffs to restrain him and cart his ass off to the hospital for treatment.
3 sets of handcuffs?
But
3 sets of handcuffs?
Well, I'm gonna say that he was drunk and wasn't cooperating, and he's they were trying to restrain him.
Is he a bulky dude? Like he can't get his arms behind his back kind of thing? Or they
No, I just think he wasn't cooperating.
so they hooked two different sets of cuffs to his hands and then put a third in between to lock him? That's what I pictured.
Yeah, probably.
Is like a chain link of cuffs behind his back.
They specifically, I saw several articles that it was a 3 sets. So my guess would be he wasn't cooperating, but he was drunk. And I don't know if you've watched enough of the police shows to see that when people are drunk, even though like once they go into the whole drunk tank thing, like the next day they're real extra sorry they were bad. Drunk people you can't reason with, so they cart him off to the hospital for treatment since he was going to kill himself. And I don't know what it escalated over. Like, I don't know when he went to Kelly's house. I don't. Again, this feller, he's going through some shit. So they cart him off to the hospital for some mental health evaluations.
Maybe she wanted to leave him.
I don't know. Maybe the officers on scene would ask what the relationship was. Kelly would say they're just friends. I don't know if at that point they were just friends. I have no idea. But the officers would head to Bill's house to let his wife know that your husband's being carted off to the hospital. You might want to check on him. Becky would explain that Bill had been taking sleeping medication, and although he did not abuse the medication, it would make him do things and act in ways he normally wouldn't. She would also say that he had been drinking alcohol, but she didn't think he was an alcoholic, even though he did drink at least 2 alcoholic beverages per day. She just said that he was just sleep deprived and really struggling. Which, on a side note, I don't know what exactly he was prescribed for his sleeping medication, but Ambien in particular will worsen depression, which naturally will increase in someone who is already depressed. And if he was already having suicidal thoughts, this just adds to that. Then factor in the drinking side of things. It seems like a perfect storm of a situation.
Hey, how old is Kelly?
43.
Oh.
Why?
I thought she was like a lot younger.
No, they're 7 years apart.
She's obnoxiously supportive of his drinking.
Oh, Becky?
Kelly.
Well, it was the wife that said that she thought she didn't consider him an alcoholic.
Oh. I thought that was Kelly.
No, so Becky doesn't think he has a problem. She thinks he's going through some shit, but she doesn't see him as an alcoholic. He's just, I don't know what her experience with alcoholism is, but for me, I think he's an alcoholic.
Yeah.
But the police department would place him on administrative leave and suspend him from work without pay for violating the department's policy regarding alcohol consumption. Particularly because he was on the SWAT team. They're supposed to be able to be called up at any moment. So they've got to be ready all the time. And if you're drunk as a skunk, that you can't be called upon. And he knew that. When he was suspended, he was also required to attend a city employee assistance program. Now, eventually, he's deemed fit for duty and to return to work. Guess how long?
3 days.
1.
Oh my gosh. I was being obnoxious with the 3 days.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So when I first read it, I too was like, what the fuck? Why would you give that person back his gun? But so after seeing how many police officers will struggle with alcohol or anything like that, I don't know what case he had done, or maybe they were assuming it was a reaction to that. And since police officers have such a high, I'm farting with a word.
It's an interesting thing to do with words.
So since their risk is so great with having an alcohol problem, I feel like the police department is more lenient with alcohol-related hiccups because they're using it.
They're self-medicating.
Because of their job. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
That, like, he turned to drinking because of something with his job, so they don't want to punish him for if he's dealing with that shit in a bad way. They're going to put him into some counseling, and I don't know how many other officers maybe in that same chunk have gotten out of control with any sort of booze. I would assume not on the SWAT team, but I feel like because officers in general are predisposed to that being a problem.
Right.
Is why it's a lenient thing. Not saying it was okay, but I think they saw it as they suspended him for a day because if he's that drunk that night, you don't want him clocking in tomorrow.
Let's face it, if he was that drunk, he wasn't going to be clocking in. And the other side of things, though, is I get getting drunk let's say he's fighting, goes to a bar or whatever, or just gets into any type of altercation. But there's a difference between that and threatening self harm.
Well, so I think they just thought he was real trashed.
But still, the level of trashed he was, it still turned to self harm. He is a danger to himself and others. I get the getting drunk and maybe picking a fight with somebody, but getting drunk and threatening self harm should have been a different red flag than apparently it was. In my opinion, is all.
Yeah. Now, mind you, that whole thing happens March 11th, 2018. So fast forward us to on Saturday night, May 11th, 2019. Surprise, surprise, Bill would be drunk again, which isn't abnormal, but he would really be hitting rock bottom. He would head over to Kelly's house. They would get into an argument. I have no idea over what. And he would end up shooting her before taking off in her car and I would put taking off in her car and driving off. So apparently I'm an idiot. But
it's okay. We already know that.
Hilarious. And so police would head out to Kelly's house after being called by a concerned neighbor because she feared something had happened to Kelly, either that she was dead or injured. Now, she had been on the phone with her neighbor, Bill, who was living with Kelly, according to that neighbor. Bill and Kelly apparently had gotten into an argument, and Bill fired his gun at her, and he called her because he wasn't sure if she was alive or not. Now, the police entered Kelly's home hoping to find her alive. They could tell by the look of the place that an altercation had occurred.
That was confusing as hell. I'm sorry, my brain is still spiraling. So Kelly is on the phone with somebody else named Bill?
No.
Run through that one more time for me.
Now, the reason the neighbor had that feeling is because it was more than just overhearing an argument and called 911. Bill had called that neighbor.
Okay.
And told the neighbor that him and Kelly had gotten into an argument, and he fired his gun at her, and he wasn't sure if she was dead or alive. He fired his gun and then scurried on out of there.
Oh.
Now, the police would get there and enter Kelly's home hoping to find her alive. Now, when they get in there, they can tell an altercation had taken place, but they would find her body face down on the floor of the hallway with a gunshot to the back of her head. It's about 8 p.m. Now, a .45 caliber bullet casing is in the threshold of the bathroom. They clear the rest of the house to make sure Bill isn't there hiding somewhere. That way they don't get snuck up on. And that's when they find out Kelly's vehicle is, in fact, gone. They also find a bloody cell phone underneath Kelly, and then they find another cell phone charging in the bedroom. They also find a bank envelope in the bedroom with $3,000 cash in there, eliminating that a potential burglar did this. They'd also find a very large bottle of vodka in the trash can, and a black duffel bag by the door with WLT embroidered on it. So that way you get the throes of the investigation thus far. So They are looking to want to talk to who WLT is when they also find out that it's a police officer that they're looking for. So mind you, he's going to know how police officers operate, all of that. So they've got to make sure they're doing things extra close because he knows the inside things.
Yeah.
And also, they got to find this feller. Now, meanwhile, before they can even really get started on the finding him and locking down that scene, Billy Boy would wreck off the interstate in the next county over. Now, the airbag would go off and he'd be in a daze. People first on the scene would say that he was waving a gun around, threatening to kill himself. When the police get there, there's a standoff because they know they're dealing with a police officer who's drunk and armed. You figure you can't predict what's going to happen. So officers would approach in an armored vehicle after a while because I think they were just done with this whole thing. He would be in a daze and would be arrested without incident, so he does give up. They do find a handgun in the truck, as well as another bottle of vodka. That was the same type they had found at the crime scene. Now, he would be taken to the hospital for his injuries, and he would be admitted into the ICU for a little bit. I did send you his mugshot if you want to pull it up, because I laughed when I saw it. Are you pulling it up?
Mm-hmm. Man, what the hell happened to him? Jesus.
At first, I thought it was funny because when they said he was arrested without incident and I saw the mugshot, I was like, the hell he was! What the fuck did the airbag do to his face hole?
Is that from the airbag? His eye is black.
Like his
The white of his eye is colored
blood.
black.
Like I've never seen an airbag do that to somebody's eyeball.
Is that from her fighting back during their altercation before he shot her?
I have no earthly idea, but when I saw his injuries, and you can also watch a video of him being brought to the hospital. I don't know if it's partially. So if you've got somebody who's drunk, it's hard to know, is his brain hole rattled from the accident he put himself in? Or is he just that fucking drunk? Or is it a head injury? Because his head looks fucked up.
For those that don't see this picture, he's got two black eyes. It looks like his left eyebrow is split. He's got a split in the top part of the bridge of his nose. It looks like his nostrils kind of ripped off. The white of his left eye is black. He, oh my god! And then
He
he's
looks
got,
rough.
yeah, he looks like he lost the fight.
Yeah. Well, he really
God.
did. But so he's in the hospital a couple days until he's medically cleared, and then they throw his ass into a wheelchair and wheel him on out to a police cruiser, chunk him in there, bring him to the jail. That way they can start their interrogation. So May 17th, roughly 6 days later, they get to talking to Bill. So they put him in an interrogation room. Initially, Bill is calm during his interrogation with his head on the table as his rights are being explained to him before they get started. Now, he would ask what his charges were because no one's talking to him. All the while, his head is still on the table. The two detectives pause for a second when he asks what his charges are because they're like, the fuck does he mean? Whatever his charges, what the fuck do you think they are? But they would tell him that his charges are murder, violation of oath of office, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. To which he would pause for a second. Again, head still on the table during this whole interrogation. He would ask who he murdered. Was it Kelly or did he kill a cop?
Oh gosh.
Yeah. They tell him that it is Kelly that's dead, and Bill loses his shit. He starts banging his head on the table, saying no repeatedly, crying, even retching into the trash can. Lots of heavy breathing, pretty much full-fledged meltdown. And I'm not sure if it's over the loss of Kelly or the realization that his life is over.
So I also question it because he knows what they're looking for. He's SWAT. He's not even a regular officer.
Yeah.
So he knows how to play the system. I don't know.
Yeah. So I have mixed feelings about this too because, yes, exactly what you said. He knows what they're looking for because he'll even say that he hears voices at one point or whispers. And I'm like, I do an eye roll thing because it's just like, I'm not going to argue the feller doesn't have some sort of mental hiccups going on. However, I can't stand when people are going to try to get out of something and then I don't like liars. So
Yeah, same.
you did what you did. Here's your punishment, fucker.
Well, that's what I think his game was with keeping his head down. They can't read his whether his body language is closed off, if he's darty eyed. He's keeping himself
Well,
with his
you saw
head.
his face. It could be it hurts.
I still think that he's playing into it.
I agree. But when he does calm down, he'll say he wants a lawyer and he doesn't want to talk, so take his ass back to jail.
Yeah, he put on a show for the recording, and now it's time to lawyer up. Yeah, it's a game.
So investigators would talk to Bill's wife, since they really didn't get shit out of Bill, about Billy and Kelly. Now, at the time of Bill's arrest, they had been married 25 years and had only discussed being separated around Christmas. So I think it surprised officers that one, she knew about the relationship, but she knew that it ran hot and cold. And weirdly, when they were talking to her, she seemed like she was slow to respond because she's thinking about how she's answering things because she's still trying to protect him. I thought it was weird because, okay, so they started talking about getting divorced around Christmas, and you figure we're in May, so they apparently had some sort of argument in December. She knows he's having an affair, but they're not doing anything towards divorce because they're worried about how it's going to affect the children.
I'm sorry, but I think that's the stupidest thing ever. She's having an emotional affair. He's literally dipping his wick wherever he feels like it for years. And it sounds like when he's home, he's drunk and abusive. That's not good for the kids either.
Well, I thought it was crazy that even at that point, she's still showing loyalty to Bill. But you can tell when if you watch it that she's not she's not throwing him under the bus or giving any sort of help towards any of this. And I think it's a little on the disgusting side. I realize that's her husband of 20 plus years. However, somebody's dead. You can shed light on stuff. Go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
But I also understand, I guess, that's the father of her children.
Whatever. He made his bed.
Right. Apparently, he made several.
Well, he made his bed with another woman in it. So peace out, motherfucker. You get what you get. And you threw a temper tantrum and killed her. Yeah. You get what you get.
Yeah. So the officer would ask her if they could get a copy of her phone, or like they would plug it in. It wouldn't do anything to her phone. It would just, that way they could get a copy of the call log and text messages between her and Bill for that day. That way it's collect any evidence. Now, she would say that she doesn't feel comfortable doing that. So that closes that door. Now, mind you, they do have the phones that were recovered at the crime scene and were able to get messages between Bill and Becky where they talked about his drinking issues. Some text messages were so much of, hey, yep, were you able to go to work? Were you able to go to work?
Called it.
If that's not a sign of a problem. And then one says, did you get it ironed out with Kelly? So I don't know if it was a case of he's getting, it took a while, but the squeeze is being put on him of shit or get off the pot. You gotta pick. Where do you live? Who are you taking care of?
They were both ready to get divorced, and it sounds like it was an interesting separation because they weren't technically separated, but both trying to find their next. Like they were lining up the next person they were.
What are you talking about?
Becky, didn't you say she was having it? Like she wasn't really. She's talking to some other dude, right?
No.
Oh,
Bill and Becky. They were husband and wife. Kelly and Bill are the side piece.
right. But what wasn't
Becky is the wife that's just taking care of the children.
But didn't you say Becky was also talking to some other dude? They hadn't had sex, but they were like,
No.
it was a friend.
Kelly was taught that was no. The brain hole got it confused. Kelly was telling her friend she had met a feller and they were just friends, but then like fast forward, it developed into more, and then she stopped talking to her friend about Bill. No, Becky's just at home with the kids, going to work, doing all the things.
Dude, I realize she's dead, but Kelly sounds like a slut.
She's just fucking Bill.
And apparently found some other dude who was also married.
Mind you, don't look down at Kelly. But Kelly's not married.
But the men she goes after are.
It was just Bill. And he told her they were trying to get divorced. They just hadn't figured it out yet, which I was like, that seems like a line anyway.
Wait a minute. I thought the other dude that she met and she stopped talking to her friend about Bill was also married.
Bill is the person she was talking to her friend about.
All right.
One and the same. Your brain hole got real extra twisted with this one.
It sure did.
So when she would meet Bill, she would talk to her friend about how she met this feller. The only hiccup seems to be he's married, but him and his wife have already started like discussing divorce. They don't sleep in the same bedroom. They're just trying to figure that one out, but he's got 2 daughters. So that's where it's going to be a little bit of a struggle dissolving that marriage. But right now they're just friends. But that's where her friend thought it was extra weird because fast forward a year, she wouldn't hear about him anymore. She didn't talk to him in the same hearts in her eyes kind of way. And then she hadn't met him either. So she thought the whole thing was a little off. So, because if it were anybody else that Kelly dated, that she would meet her significant others and like it was a normal social thing.
Gotcha.
Bill and Kelly, their relationship went from all great and gravy to hot and cold, loud arguments, like
drama.
They're both strong-headed individuals, so it can be very tumultuous.
I get you.
So then when they find the phones at the crime scene and are able to get text messages between Bill and Becky, which they're the husband and wife, where they were talking about his drinking issues, and then one back and forth between them where Becky asks if he got it all ironed out with Kelly. And I just think that's interesting because get what ironed out? Is he supposed to be ending it? Or is he supposed to be moving in all the way? Because I would say if he's still bringing a duffel bag, then he doesn't necessarily live there.
And Becky's not telling the cops anything?
No. So she says she doesn't feel comfortable providing stuff to the police department, and that's kind of gets shut down there, which I thought was crazy loyalty to somebody who's not doing you right.
Yeah.
Now, police would interview also Bill's co-workers in the police department who were understandably shocked. Which, talk about an odd place to be in when you're interviewing fellow police officers and probably even coworkers. So it's just like everybody is just in a daze.
Well, I'm gonna guess that they brought in special investigators because otherwise there's like conflict of
Yeah,
interest right there. So it's
right.
probably not their coworkers. Like it's his coworkers, but not.
But still, a fellow police officers.
Yeah.
It's got to be weird. Well, one officer that they interview would say it had nothing to do with him being a police officer losing his shit, that some people just snap no matter what, that their brain holes aren't done cooked right.
It doesn't help when you're adding things to it to mess them up more. Alcohol is a depressant. You can't be surprised when you add a depressant to your system and then you lose your shit repeatedly.
Well, I don't have sympathy for people who create their own problems. Alcohol created a problem for him. Him bringing someone into his marriage created a problem. You can't woe is me and cry about it into your pillow that you're doing this to yourself. I understand depression, blah, blah, blah. But to make things worse and then cry about it, that's on you.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, back to the evidence they're collecting and processing. So, that bullet casing that they found in the hallway was matched to the bullet that killed Kelly, and that she was shot in the back of the head at close range. Which I say, what a little bitch. I think he came out of the bathroom. I don't know why I figure he came out of the bathroom and shot her in the back of the head. And if she had her phone in her hand because it was underneath her body, which is what I figure she had it in her hand, maybe she was going to call for help. Maybe she was doing something and he had himself locked in the bathroom and came out as she's like turned away. Or maybe she was, I don't think she was running, but he shot her in the back of the head like a little bitch.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's the little bitch, not her.
Yeah.
But they would also get a search warrant for Bill's house where they would find matching bullets at his home to the ones that were at the scene. They would also pull the prints off the vodka bottle that would match Bill's. And when he is arrested, when he was brought out of the hospital, he's charged with aggravated assault, violating his oath as a police officer, possession of a firearm, in addition to murder, and his place under arrest. Now, Kelly's funeral was deservedly so a big deal in the community. The ambulance that she was most often assigned to was taken out of service, and she was actually brought to the cemetery. They used that as her hearse,
That's sad.
as her last ride. It was real sad because there was like a whole thing on her funeral. There were so many fire trucks that showed up and showed out like lights and sirens and all that.
I hope there were no fires anywhere else.
That was not the day for there to be an emergency.
It was not.
But they lined the streets with fire trucks and EMS as she went by. It was real extra sad, and I know her mom would say, because that was her best friend too, they spent a lot of time together because Kelly had a dog. So when she would be on like long shifts, her mom would take her dog. They would also travel together. So she says she misses her terribly because that was her person and they did a lot together. And then now anytime she sees an ambulance, she can't help but see her daughter. But it meant a lot for her, for so many people to come out for her funeral because she knew she was a special person. But the fact that she touched so many people's lives was a lot for her.
That's sad.
It really was. No, Bill does plead guilty to murder and would be sentenced to life with the possibility of parole. Now, in Georgia, that means he has to serve a minimum of 30 years before he could be released, which would set him to be released when he's 82. Now, the charges of violating his oath as a police officer were eventually dropped, but the gun charge would stay on. And I thought that was an interesting thing to keep on because apparently the gun charge will add 5 years of probation to his sentence.
That's why. So
when he gets released, it's
yeah,
which I thought was interesting.
It's smart. It's a way to keep tabs on him.
Yeah. Now, the only thing Bill would have to say was that he really has no memory of that night, and he is truly sorry that he'll have 30 years to reflect on the tragedy, and that he'll say, I want you to understand, I'm not blaming this on alcohol. But to me, it sounds like that's exactly what he's saying.
He is.
But
he's a crybaby little bitch.
He is. But no one will really know what caused things to escalate that day between him and Kelly that would lead him to shoot her in the back of the head, which is really fucking disgusting because that means it's not like they were in a fight, he was going to hurt himself, the gun went off. He shot her in the back of the head.
I think she was going to leave him. She probably told him to make a choice.
So, yeah, and I wouldn't blame Kelly either if it's just like, you said you've been getting divorced. Why aren't you divorced yet? You're over here, you're over there. Like, pick a life. But I also didn't know if, since his go-to seemed to be getting drunk and threatening suicide, if he maybe locked himself in her bathroom with that gun, and then maybe she was about to call 911 or anything, and like banging on the door of like, you need to either get the fuck out or I'm calling whoever. And then maybe she turned to call, and that's when he busted out and then shot her in the back of the head. I mean, I don't know that that's how that happened, but I'm just saying, I think it's weird that the casing was in the threshold of the bathroom. She was face down, shot in the back of the head. So she was turned away. There wasn't a fight. I mean, there might have been earlier, and he ran to the bathroom like a little bitch.
Well, I don't know if it was necessarily like a little bitch, because if his face got like that because of her, then that was when he ran to the bathroom because he thought he just lost his eyeball.
Dude,
And
yeah.
I hope that it was her and not the airbag.
Well, I don't know. I haven't studied airbag injuries, but I was just like, that feller's face was fucked up.
It was.
So, I mean, I'm kind of glad that happened to him because couldn't happen to a nicer feller.
Same.
Now, if you were wondering if he's still married,
Oh, I'm sure he is.
he is.
Yeah.
He is. Becky would say that he was literally out of his mind when he did what he did.
And you know what? If it weren't for
So,
the fact that he was a cheating pig, it probably would have been her and their kids.
I don't know if she's necessarily thought about that.
And she might as well stick it out, I guess, because it's not like he's going anywhere. Does she have she must have a hell of a life insurance policy on that feller. She's collecting one way or another.
I don't know, but I don't. I have mixed feelings, which that's the case for anybody who doesn't want to hear our thoughts and opinions.
That means hang
But
up. Don't turn around and message us with your complaints.
well, that we done talk too much. But so I don't know. Like I have mixed feelings. I don't know whether to feel like with I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Becky because I want to be like, holy shit, that's some serious fucking loyalty. Like she took her vows very seriously. Not to say that you shouldn't. However, I'm like, if Dave shot his mistress and the police were like, hey, do you know anything? I sure fucking do. Fry that son bitch. Just a warning, Dave. You might want to think about your things. But I just, I don't understand this loyalty.
No, I think she
And not
felt.
to say I'm not a loyal person, but I have stipulations. I don't appreciate liars, two-timing some bitches. And I definitely don't support the murderings.
Well, have you seen the dating pool that's out there? I don't feel like it's the greatest.
Well, and especially if people are taking out the good ones.
At least now she knows he can't have another affair with a woman.
Well,
He could have him a pen pal and have a lady lined up for when he gets out in his 80s.
probably so. Or the rate I've seen things of people coming to visit and having sex with inmates in the waiting room or the visiting room. I don't know what goes on in prisons. It's a whole other world out there.
Technically, I guess it's in there because they're locked up.
Shut up, Andrea. I was just saying is all. I don't know whether to be impressed or like I don't understand the mindset.
I don't either.
I try to.
Well, when you first started talking about her, I thought maybe she felt trapped because they have young kids and it would be hard to start over. So she was just delusional in
Yeah.
at first I was thinking she was delusional in the sense of if she knows about the affair and she's making it like she's okay with it, then it seems less hurtful, if that makes sense. Like she's lying to herself that she's okay with it. But then once he's in jail because he murdered his mistress, I don't understand why she would stand by that.
I have no earthly idea. It's confusing to me. And I have no earthly idea.
People, if you can't handle your devil's juice, don't drink it.
Well, so that's where I thought kind of the same thing of initially she was fine with him going over there because he was a lot to handle. And I would imagine you'd want the spouse you married back. And I think she was seeing it as possibly Kelly was temporary, and if Kelly can help bring him out of his dark place.
So they were only together for a year and some change?
Yeah, a
That's still
year-ish.
not temporary.
I don't know at what point they met, but it's just like, no, it wasn't well, it's temporary in the scheme of 20 plus years. I think Becky, it sounded initially when I was reading it, she's playing long game. And when Bill got his head out of his ass, he'd realized Becky's been there through it all and he's done her wrong. And maybe her being there, being the rock,
No.
and he'd come back and they'd work through it, is what I was just like, maybe that's the goal she was. But then I was like, she didn't dump his ass when he went to jail?
Yeah. She needs to have a mental health evaluation.
Yeah, she could do better, way better. Anything would be better. But that's that case. I do feel sorry that the world lost a positive person out there. Definitely seems like a loss to the community.
It's sad. I'm glad they didn't have
Yeah.
any kids together.
Yeah. And Becky should be glad it wasn't her.
I bet you Becky, because it sounds like she's one hell of a doormat, that if Bill and Kelly had kids together, she probably would have been raising them too.
Yeah. She's probably not even raising her own. Sorry. That is purely just being an asshole.
Yeah. Yeah. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Homicide Hobbies. If we made you laugh, if we made you cry, or if we mindfucked you for the day, then we thank you for listening. Please write a review on whatever you're listening to us on. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers. We're freaking awesome. And join us next week for another episode of Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy.
And I'm Claire.
That's all we've got.